Hey guys, it's Anthony here from the Xbox Boomer channel today, and this is another episode of the Xbox Boomer Project. Just for those of you tuning in, this being your first episode, this is an audio-only series, so it's meant to be an audio show. So no, there's no gameplay. There's no, you're not going to see anything more on the screen. This is meant to be treated like a podcast or like a radio show. So yeah, just put it on while you're, cutting your beard or, peeing in the shower or, whatever you're doing throughout your day. Just have this kind of playing in the background, and I think that's the best way to do it. But yeah, just getting into it. This is going to be an episode on the Telltale game series version of The Walking Dead for Xbox 360. And so, The Walking Dead, if I remember right, this game actually came out as a digital download before it was available on disc. And I didn't even know there was a physical release of this game on the 360 until I ran across it. And so I did pick it up. So I'm actually looking at the case. I do have the game complete in box. So I've got it with the cover art, the game disc. It comes with a little manual that doesn't have much of anything in it. A couple colored pictures. And yeah, I paid, I want to say it was, cheaper than $5 at my local GameStop. And when I did go there, they did have several copies. And this was probably about a year ago. And I've noticed since I purchased my copy from them, they've actually all sold out. And so there's apparently people interested in this game for the price that it is. Because like I said, there was a giant stack of them that I had my choice of. And, people bought them all, for probably, let's say $4 and, 99 cents or whatever they charge. But I'll tell you a little bit about it. So I remember this game came out when I was a little younger, and it was about 2012, and it was very loosely based on the TV show with the same name. So if you've seen on AMC, I think that's the TV station it used to air on, it's a show called The Walking Dead, and I mean they have like several seasons of this show now. But it's basically a like an apocalypse kind of zombie survival television show where there's characters are scrounged around for resources, and they're trying to hunt deer in the middle of the zombie apocalypse for food, and they're trading with other survivor groups out there. And the Xbox 360 version, even though it doesn't have much to do with the TV show, it does stay true to those values. You're going to see a lot of the same themes that you do see in the television show. But like when I played this for the first time, I think I might have watched like the first episode of The Walking Dead, just because when that show first came out, it was like a phenomenon. And, it was very popular. Everybody, in school and stuff would be like, "Oh, bro, did you watch The Walking Dead?" And, it was kind of crazy there for a minute. So, it was a commonly, tossed around television show that you would hear around town or around, young teenagers and stuff. But I remember it came out on the Xbox 360 dashboard as a digital download. And back then, you didn't purchase things on the Xbox 360 marketplace with actual money. What you would have to do is use your real money to purchase Microsoft points, which I'm sure a lot of you guys remember out there. And The Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 1, only costed 400 Microsoft points, which back then was the equivalent of, I think it was $5 USD, in US money. So it was very, very cheap for the first episode. So I was like, I saw that right away because, I was always looking for cheap games to play on my 360 when I was younger. And so I'm sure I got the money somehow. I mean, I got, $5 from my dad or whatever. And I bought it was titled The Walking Dead, a Telltale game series, Season 1, Episode 1, I believe. Something like that. And I didn't realize that when you were buying The Walking Dead Episode 1, that was not the full game. So if, I mean, it's not so much important nowadays because, we can't get on the Xbox store to buy things anymore. But back then it was a big deal because there's actually 5 episodes to this game. And so if you bought them each individually, they were $5 each episode. So that's not a $5 game. That's like a $25 game. And I'm sure there might have been like a season pass system for like where you get all of them for $20 or something. I can't really remember. But I will say, if you are interested in playing this for the first time in 2024, or if this is, years later you're watching this audio show, you are very fortunate because this happens to be a pretty good game. And, you can, I mean, I'll get into it later, but you can typically beat this in one sitting if you played it on like a Saturday for your entire day off of work or whatever, or off of school. But when this game came out, for all of us who were around, you had to wait like 2 months in between episodes. And so, like I said, there was 5 episodes. So you would complete the first section of the game, which could be like 2 hours of gameplay, and it could end on a cliffhanger, and you would have to wait 2 months, after that to see what happens. And that was like really bothering at the time. Like I remember, especially as you get deeper into this game, the story changes quite a bit, and it gets very intense the later you play. And it was very depressing at first. When you really like the game, and you beat that first episode or the second episode, and you're like, yeah, man, like, I want to play more. Like, I'm ready to just play it all the way through. And you can't, So that was one thing. That was a trend they had on the 360 and even the PS3, I believe, for a long time, was they would release episodic arcade games. So you couldn't play them all at once. You'd have to wait through the course of like a year for the game to release in full. So I will say that. But thankfully, this game is available on several different systems. It's available on the 360, the PS3. I think there's next gen like PS4 remakes, I'm sure, where you can get it on the store there. I even played this when the PlayStation Vita came out. I played this and beat it on the PlayStation Vita. It's available for like your computer systems on Steam. I saw online you could play it for the iOS, for your Apple, handhelds and stuff like that. And I even, funny enough, saw that The Walking Dead Season 1 is available for the Ouya, or whatever the hell, however you pronounce that. And if you guys don't remember the Ouya, or whatever, blah, 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 that was a really shit tier video game system they tried to push for like, 6 months or however long. And it didn't take off, but basically it was going to be a phone-based console. It was going to be like a console for your TV that ran off of, I think, like Android, so you could play like mobile games on your TV. And that was a big deal at the time because the main video game systems were PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and the Wii was kind of like its own thing. It really didn't compete necessarily like head-to-head with the 360 and the PS3. So yeah, for kind of a little sidebar, but the Ouya was a shitty little system that, they were trying to take on like the 360 and the PlayStation 3. And it failed like miserably. But that's a little piece of history. So if you happen to be one of the shitty owners of the Ouya system, you may be able to find a way to play The Walking Dead on it. Now this game, it's very reminiscent of like a point and click style of game. Like if you've played any of those computer based like kind of like the mystery solving, like riddle games. It's very close to that, but it's much more casual of a game. Like you're not going to be like really flustered, struggling to find your way through this game. I mean, there might be a couple small sections where you might have to really, put some effort in and try to figure out like, oh, how do I solve this little puzzle or, get past this area. But it is fairly straightforward. So, I mean, I don't even think I used like a walkthrough or Googled anything in this game. But there are some little, I mean, they're like puzzle sections, and we can get into that a little later. But most of this game, it's done in a very cinematic style. So it's very hard to talk about this game because it's almost like you're playing a movie. Like even though, yes, there are going to be some fight sequences, for like a couple minutes throughout the game that are going to happen in first person or through like a rifle scope. There's going to be a lot of third person sections where you're going to be walking around, interacting with items or choosing different characters in your survivor group to talk to. And so there's a little bit of everything in this game, but it is very pleasurable to play through. I mean, especially your first time, because you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know what to expect. I will say this game focuses heavily on like decision pathways. And so, almost like how in certain games you can influence, who's going to live or who's going to die based on the decisions you make. There's a lot of really hard choices in this game that you're going to have to, get through, and you're going to have to make a call on. And sometimes it feels like no matter what you do, it's a really hard choice. And, sometimes in this game there is no winning, no matter what you choose. But that, because there are so many decisions in the conversation trees and also in the, the actual gameplay of like choosing like, oh, if two characters are dangling off of a ledge, which character do you want to pull up? There's a lot of that in this game. So you can probably replay it a second time if you're interested. I have over the course of several years, because I think this game has been out over 10 years now, which is crazy to think about, which, kind of why I'm calling myself the Xbox Boomer, because I feel like an old man, because this game, I mean, playing through it, it's smooth, it plays just fine on a 360. But I'm sure this isn't the most state-of-the-art graphics or anything. But this game, one interesting kind of, little factoid about it is that it has a very unique art style. So, when I was younger, I mean, I was all about, like, the graphics of the video games. And so, games like Battlefield 3, when they came out, like, they looked, like, pretty crisp for that console generation. And the characters, you could see detail on them and in the way they moved. This game, the art style reminds me a lot of Borderlands, of how it's like, really like, it's kind of rough, I know it's just the style they chose to do this game in, but, it did turn me off from the game when I was younger. But you'll see what I mean. It's a very like animated and kind of cartoony look to the game, especially like in the character, like the player models. They look very, just cartoony basically. But nowadays, now that I'm older and I've learned to appreciate kind of all of those styles, because I've played some really good 360 games and I've played some really shitty 360 games. And, the graphics and the art style don't really determine how I feel about a game anymore. But that's just a mention for you. Um, Now, one thing also about The Walking Dead, at least on the 360 version, and they may have fixed this in the additional releases, but if you're playing this on the 360, the performance does slow down quite a bit sometimes. Like if it's let's say a chase scene and a bunch of zombies are coming after you and they're all running on screen at the same time, you will see stuttering on the, this is at least with the disc version of the game, you will see stuttering, in your 360. I mean, I had some sections, especially if something big happened, and then there was a loading screen to load the next, section of combat or, whatever, chase sequence there was. My game would freeze. I mean, that shit would freeze on the screen for 30 whole seconds. And I would be sitting there with my controller, and I mean, if you guys have played 360, you know all the little tricks you can do. You can hit the Xbox dashboard button, and sometimes it'll unfreeze your game. You could try to pop the battery pack out of your controller and put it back in, and sometimes that'll do it. I mean, there was a lot of that in this game. And for this audio show, I actually, because I did beat this game back in March of 2024, and this is, I believe, my third time playing through it, maybe my fourth, I can't remember. I mean, this is through many, many years. I haven't beaten this recently, aside from when I ran through it in March. And, and that was, 5 months ago, just about. And, I mean, there was a section on one of the episodes where I'm climbing up this long, long ladder. I mean, it's just incredibly long. And, I mean, I was watching all the characters in front of me that were climbing this ladder, right above my head, and they were stuttering, the entire, 60 seconds we were climbing up this ladder. And, I mean, it blew my mind because, there weren't even any zombies around or anything, So it just looked bad, it felt bad, but it was not unplayable. I mean, especially if you grew up with this generation and you know what to expect. The stuttering, especially for the price I paid for this game, the $5. I mean, it wasn't a game-breaking, glitch or anything. So, I mean, just be aware of that. I mean, whenever you go back to these consoles that are getting a little bit older and a little dated, they're not the same as the modern generation of consoles, and that's just something to know going in. There's some slowdown on this one. Now, like I said, there's 5 episodes in this game, but there's also a DLC pack. And now, many years ago, when it came out, I had played the DLC. The DLC is called 400 Days. And it's basically a group of little side stories that, again, are loosely related to, what you're going to be doing in the main game. And I remember it generally being a good DLC and worth the $5, but I'm not really going to touch on that in this review. I would recommend, if you want the entire experience, that you go play that DLC after you finish the main story of this game. But, I mean, I played through The Walking Dead Season 1 and the follow-up game, Walking Dead Season 2, and I didn't play through the DLC again, and I had a phenomenal time. So it's not something you have to play or you have to seek out, because it's very hard to get a hold of if you do play the 360 version of this game, because as far as I know, there is no way to get, that DLC pack on the disc, as far as I know. But I'm sure subsequent releases probably came, with the DLC, I would imagine. But just know that it's out there if you do end up liking this game. So I guess just diving in to the actual story, you're going to play as a guy named Lee, and the game starts and you're going to be in the back of a cop car, and you're handcuffed, and you're just sitting back there. You just got hemmed up for something, and you're going to be driving down the highway in rural Georgia, and that's where a lot of this game is going to take place, is in Georgia, pretty much all of it. So if you guys are from Georgia, you might get a little giggle out of that. But this police officer is going to talk to you quite a bit, and it's going to give you a chance to kind of unravel some of the story. And throughout the conversation, you're going to discover that your character Lee has in some way hurt or murdered his wife, and you don't really know more than that. You just know that something happened, and Lee was a teacher, and he got caught up in this situation with murdering his wife, and now he's going to jail. Now it doesn't really happen that simple, because once you get a few minutes in, and again, this is going to be a relatively spoiler-free review, so I'm just going to scratch the surface here, and you guys can play through it and let me know if the game was shit or not. When you're going down this highway talking to the cop's going to kind of loosen up with you and start telling you stories and laughing with you a little bit, and then bam, you're gonna hit somebody in the road. There was just somebody stumbling, across the road, and long story short, the cop car is going to crash, and you're going to wake up in the back seat, and you're going to have to escape this cop car. And that's kind of when you're first going to get some control of this character Lee, and it's going to introduce you to the the cursor system in the game, where you can look around at different objects. So let's say you look at the glass window in the cop car. If you hit sometimes the Y button, your character will look at it and make an observation. And then if you hit the A button, once your cursor's on that item, he's going to perform an action. So in the cop car, I believe he kicks out the window. That's one of the first things you're going to do in this game after the cop car crashes, is kick out this window. And then sometimes there's going to be additional, prompts that pop up for you. So the B button, sometimes if you have an item that you can use in your inventory, you can look at something and, hit the B button. And so for example, if you had a brick in the back of the cop car, you could maybe hit the B button, and he'll throw the brick at the window and try to break the window that way. And then usually, most of the time, I remember the X button is to start conversations and kind of talk to other characters. If you put the cursor over them and look at them, it's a really unique system. That's why this game just screams to me that it was designed to be a point-and-click game, which it kind of does well. But yeah, so you're basically going to escape from this cop car. And, you'll start getting used to the controls, because they're a little unique for this game. And, you're going to find the cop that you rode in with, and he's going to be dead. He's going to be, deader than a damn doornail, and there's going to be a shotgun by him. And so you're like, well, this cop is dead, so I got to go get help. So you're going to grab this key, you grab the handcuff key to get out of the cuffs, and, when you do that, that cop wakes up and he tries to attack you. And you realize real quick, you're like, oh shit, this is a zombie, man. This ain't no cop anymore. This is a zombie. And so, you scuffle around a little bit, and Lee is going to basically take his handcuffs off, and then your goal is to get that shotgun. And when you do that, obviously, you're going to shoot the cop with the shotgun, the zombie. And you're going to need to go get help. And you're not going to get a full picture of what's going on until you actually play into this game a little bit. You'll have to get to probably the end of the first episode before you actually realize what's going on. And that's, like I said, that's going to loosely follow the events of the TV show. But while you were fighting with this zombie cop, you notice that there's a little girl that's watching all of this unfold on top of a hill. And that little girl, as you play, she is a very important part of this game. Her name is Clementine. And throughout the first episode, I'm not going to reveal too much, but you are going to find out that Clementine is all alone. And, this zombie issue has become a big problem for all of Georgia. And so, you're basically, through some unfortunate events, you're going to take care of Clementine. And she's, I'd say she's maybe like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. I can't really remember, but she's a young little girl. And, she has no family, no survival skills, no plan. And so your character Lee offers to take care of her, and that's a really big chunk of this game. She is a character, so you can have conversations with her, and, sometimes she might need food in parts of the story. And you're going to just develop this bond. And through, developing that bond, you're actually going to see quite a bit in this game, where when you're having a conversation with Clementine, you'll say like, "Hey girl, you better cut that hair." And it'll pop up on your screen like, "Clementine will remember that." And that was like a huge meme when this game came out that people were making fun of. Because Clementine, and even all the other characters in this game, depending on which response you choose in those conversation trees, because there's a variety of options that you can tell people the situations, they're going to remember that maybe like 5 episodes down the road. So you want to be very intentional with what you're telling people and which information you're revealing, because it could either really help you later on in the game, or it could really hurt you. And this game is, it's really deep on that note, because, there's stuff that you will say in episode 2 that comes up in episode 5, and you're going to be like, "Oh man, like damn, I forgot about that," Because this game, it's not terribly long, but it is long enough. It would take you an entire day, like waking up to the point of almost going to bed, playing this game to finish it in full. But yeah, so, you are going to play as this man Lee, and you're going to be taking care of this little girl Clementine. And now, you're going to find that the zombies are, they've infested the entire town of, the Atlanta, Georgia area, and all the neighborhoods. And it's become a real problem. And so you're going to get together with these guys, and you're going to say, "Hey, let's get the hell out of here." And that's how you end up at the first farm you're going to visit. And that's, I believe it's his name is Herschel, I want to say, Herschel's farm. So you're going to head over there and try to figure out a game plan. And, it's very interesting because in the beginning of the game, many of the characters don't really understand what's going on. It's truly like at the beginning of the zombie outbreak. Because obviously this is a zombie game, if you know anything about this going in. But by the end of the game, you're going to see that some time has passed, because several months, have gone, throughout the course of the game. And, you're going to see people's attitudes change, and their understanding of, like, the zombie situation has changed quite a bit. And that's kind of really cool to see. Because it'll piss you off in the beginning of the game, because you'll be telling people, you're like, "Hey, man, there's zombies. They're like right down the road, dude. We gotta get guns. We gotta get some shit together, Like, get a backpack going. Let's move." And these people are gonna fight you. They're gonna be like, "Yo, man, you need to relax. Put some PJs on and get a peanut butter sandwich, man." And you're gonna be wanting to smack them in the face, like, "Hey, wake up, brother. What are you doing?" So it's a really interesting dynamic where the game starts and kind of where it ends. That's something that I think was very pronounced in the game. Now you are going to go to a variety of, different locations. And so, like I said, it begins kind of on the highway or the expressway by, I believe it's Atlanta, Georgia. I've never been to Georgia, so you guys, somebody will probably know. But yeah, it's near the big city. You're gonna go through some neighborhoods over there, and then you're gonna make your way to Herschel's Farm, which is a small little like homestead, out in rural Georgia. And you're gonna find out some backstory, and this is very early on. Like I said, I'm gonna keep it real low on the spoiler kind of list. But you're gonna find out that Lee and his family are originally from Macon, Georgia. And so obviously Lee is kind of curious about his family through all the zombie apocalypse stuff and all the chaos. And so Lee is going to inadvertently, end up in a position where he has to check on his family. And kind of you get to discover where his family is at now and kind of what they're doing and what they're not doing. And, that was a very cool thing to see play out through basically the entire first episode. It's like, oh crap, you can see your character thinking to himself, like, where's my family? Like, I know, because there's some backstory with his family, and how they feel about him murdering his own wife. And so he's really worried because he's like, well, are they going to want me around even if, there's chaos going on? Are they still alive? Are they still in the area? Like, what do I do? And you can see all the characters throughout the conversation trees and, just the story. They're all wondering kind of the same thought path of like, what do I do? Like, what plan do we need to make? And in a lot of cases, you get to sway that opinion of like, oh, are we going to go live at, in this motor inn, or are we going to go to this farm, or, where do we want to go? I will say, despite the several, different varieties of choices you're going to make in this game, or have the opportunity to make, the game does chug along on a pretty certain, kind of like location to location basis. So like episode 1 will be primarily in just a handful of locations, and then naturally, even though you can choose several different people to bring with you and several different, kind of story changing actions, when you get to like episode 2, 3, 4, 5, they're still going to take place in the same-ish areas, regardless of what you choose. So there's some bitter and sweet to making those decisions, because I mean I think they did the best job they could with giving you different paths to take, even though the game is underneath it's somewhat linear. Like there's some outcomes you just can't choose in this game. I mean, they are like set pieces and they're gonna happen no matter what you choose. Because sometimes, I would work my ass off trying to save a certain character or trying to like kick another character out of the group because they were causing a bunch of trouble. And, there's just some set pieces in this game you just can't avoid, So you're going to have to deal with those when they happen. And I'm not going to spoil any of them. But yeah, from the pharmacy, because all of Lee's family in Macon, Georgia, they all work and live around this central pharmacy that his family owns. And so you're going to get to go explore that pharmacy. I mentioned already that a large chunk of this game, or at least a decent portion, is going to be located around a motel. So you're gonna have the option to kind of decide if you want to use this motel as your home base, and some of the characters you're going to have around you in that area. You're going to have an interaction at a dairy farm, and that was one of the most interesting parts of the game to me. That was when, I think it was episode 2, I want to say it's episode 2, where you do find a dairy farm. And I was not expecting a couple of the outcomes that happened there. And by the end of episode 2, I think it's going to kind of change your mindset a little bit of what, how you're going to play the game and, the things you can expect moving forwards. Because there was, early on in this game, in the first, couple hours, there was some events that were, shocking when they happened, based on my decisions. And, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, shit. I was not expecting that. So there's a lot of that in this game. You're going to go to a train yard at some point, because a lot of the survivors you're going to meet in your different groups, because there are several groups you're going to come across through your gameplay time. They all have different thoughts on how to escape this zombie situation that's unfolding. So some of them are going to want to get in an RV and live on the road. Some of them are going to want to make a home base and fortify it. Some of them are just prefer to be by themselves and don't want to be a part of your group. And even others, I mentioned the train yard, some of them want to, hijack a train so they can get to somewhere else. Because not everybody knows really the extent of the zombie outbreak. So there's a lot of that. You're going to come across some really big groups of survivors where you're going to have to kind of decide, are these people friendly, or do they have, underlying motives where they're trying to, steal from us or kill us, or, are they bandits? And I will say by the game, you're going to reach Savannah, Georgia, and, that's another large chunk of this game is in Savannah, because from the very beginning, you get to hear Clementine's side of the story is a little kid, and Clementine was basically left with a babysitter when the zombie outbreak started, and her parents went to Savannah for a trip. And so you actually will have the opportunity to see, Clementine's parents and kind of interact with them and see that unfold. And, that is really a full circle event. By the end of the game, a lot of changes are going to happen, but I feel like in general, you get to check the box of feeling good about yourself of okay, I tied up that loose end, or okay, I got closure on that piece of it. If you hear about something in the beginning of the game, or you don't understand something in the first episode or two, it usually wraps around, and you're gonna see that come back at the end of the game to where you could be okay, I remember that. I remember making that choice. I remember seeing that person, and so that is very cool. I will say they did a good job of wrapping up the present and putting a good bow on it, and they really made this game presentable in the sense of okay, it's complete. It's not some bullshit like the end of Lollipop Chainsaw, which I'm not going to spoil for you, but I felt good about beating this game. But it will leave you, in a kind of leave you in your feel zone. Because, there's a lot of characters that, you're going to interact with, that you're going to get to know their backstory. There's Kenny you're going to find. He's a large piece of this Walking Dead game universe. And he's going to be one of your buddies, or he can be. He's a very hillbilly type of guy with a, family, his wife Katja and his son Duck. You're going to find him very early in the game. There is a girl, Lily. I believe she is a Air Force veteran, and her father, her father Lily. Her father Larry is a very tall, built man, kind of chunky but built, old, gray-haired man. And he's a little rough around the edges, but depending on your interactions with him, it can change things quite a bit later down the road. And there's just a multitude of other different, characters. There's a guy, Glenn, you'll meet, who is actually from the TV show. So that was kind of interesting. I did learn that later on. But again, it's not important. If you've never watched a TV show before in your life, that's totally okay. I mean, it's a great game. You don't have to understand anything going in. But yeah, I'll say, even though I would call this a relatively short game, I think it's good for one playthrough at least. If you do like kind of the zombie kind of theme in video games, zombie apocalypse and kind of like survivors running around, gathering resources. If you like games like, I said it once in a different, I think an Xbox Boomer project earlier, but I will say it again. If you like games that have the Mass Effect style of, conversation trees, this is right up your alley because you can change a lot of different things in this game, even based on just your words you tell to people. Just the one thing I would not recommend this game for is action, because you're not going to get a lot of like you're running around hacking and slashing stuff. A lot of like your first-person shooter, your gunplay. There's just not a lot of that in here. And this is not a good game to just pop in for 5-10 minutes, after work or after school. You've got to invest a little chunk of time, 30 minutes, an hour, at least something, so you can solve some of these puzzles. You can actually listen to the story because it's it's a lot like a TV show, or like a movie, a couple smaller movies put together. Each episode being like its own movie. And I will say there's a ton of almost like quick time events in this game. They're not obnoxious, they're not really at random, because I know like in Resident Evil 5, for example, that's a third-person shooting game about like, not really zombies, but like plagued individuals, but very, very similar horror themes. And in that game, there's button pressing events that happen at random, and you'll just be walking around and you'll get slapped with a chain, from a guy riding on a dirt bike, and you're like, what the hell, man? I was watching a cutscene. I was scratching my balls. Like, I didn't even have the controller in my hands. Like, you expected me to press that? And this game does not, it's not unfair. And I really appreciate that. Because usually button pressers are just something, companies put in the game to kind of like pad their game out a little bit and kind of like, oh, what should we do here, man? I don't know, bro. We don't have much time. We got to push this crap out. Oh, if they're just make them press the A button like 3 times. And be like, oh, great, man. Great, bro. So they didn't do that. And I really, really appreciate that. Because like I said, it's more a point-and-click style of game with some, action sequences that are in first and third person. And sometimes if you're in, an intense chase or a fight with zombies, because there are, times where you're going to have to fight zombies and even fight other people, like bandits and looters and things like that. And, you're going to have to retaliate against them. And there's going to be a lot of pressing buttons and, doing things under a set amount of time before the time runs out. Because there's going to be some kind of time crunch segments of this game where like, oh, you better turn that valve real quick or we're going to get eaten. Or like, oh, you better, hop in the RV or, grab the gun or whatever it is, or you're going to get shot. So there is some parts of action in this game, but they are kind of like the climax points, like the pinnacle points. They're not, your minute-to-minute gameplay is going to be walking around, inspecting things in the world, trying to solve puzzles and kind of trying to ease tensions between, your characters and the survival groups. But yeah, it was a really good game, and I hope you can find it for $5 like I did. Oh, voice crack. Sorry, I got like a dust or something in my throat there. And if you do like this game, there are several additional Walking Dead games for the 360 and next generation consoles. So the direct sequel, which you'll probably want to play it, right after you finish this one, because it's pretty much a direct sequel. That one is called The Walking Dead Season 2, and that one is a little more expensive. I do have that one that I have here, in the case and everything. But it's a little more expensive, but it is a very good game. And if you did like the first season of The Walking Dead, you will definitely like Season 2, because it took me very long time to track this one down for a reasonable price. And then even on the Xbox One and I believe PS4, there is another Walking Dead continuation. I believe it's called The Walking Dead, The Last Chapter or The Last Season or something. And I have not played that one, but I will pick that up when I find it cheap. So in this base series, there's going to be 3 games. You're going to be looking at The Walking Dead Season 1, which is this, Season 2, and then the final chapter, or whatever it's called. Now, there are some spin-off Telltale games, versions of The Walking Dead as well. There's a game called Walking Dead Michonne, which is another, it's going to be like a point-and-click style of game as well, to my understanding. And I don't know if that one had a physical release, but you might want to look that one up in case you have a modded 360. Maybe you can slap a download on that and play through it. I probably will get to that sometime in the distant future. And then there's also another one for Xbox One and PS4. It's unrelated, as far as I know. It's called The Walking Dead: A New Frontier. So I believe there's 5 games at least in the Telltale game series. So if you like this style of game of getting to choose the conversation trees and your decision pathways, there's quite a few of them out there for you to play. Now I will say the one thing to be cautious of is that there is a shitty Walking Dead game on the 360 that I do have upstairs in my 360 collection, and it's called The Walking Dead Survival Instinct, I think. But that one is a first-person shooter, and that's more based around the TV show. It is extremely glitchy, a really shit-tier game, in my opinion. I'm sure we'll probably talk about that another day when I put some time into it. But if you are looking for the actual, the point-and-click style of the Walking Dead games, that is the one you're going to want to stay away from, because that is more of a first-person shooter style of zombie game. But yeah, just to sum this up, it's a good single-player game. If it's raining outside or it's snowing or, you just got some time to burn on a 3-day weekend, you could run through The Walking Dead Season 1. You could probably get it for $5 to $10 if I had to guesstimate. And, it'll hit you in your feels, because you're going to care about Lee by the end of this game. You're going to care about Clementine, and you're going to actually give a shit about what happens in the story. And you're going to get upset if something doesn't go your way. And, it's all about trying to catch up and trying to, fix those problems in the storyline. So that's kind of what you'll be doing. But yeah, I guess, give it a shot and let me know if it sucked or not. But thank you for watching, and God bless you and your family. Have a great day.